be for that, what the excuse is supposed to be for that. When you don't just like sort of tiptoe along trying to inspire violence. She literally said, take matters into your own hands. That's the explicit version. That's the thing you try not to say. She just said that. If you're at the border, get a gun and take matters into your own hands. That's madness.
She knows where she is, okay? She's on Jeanine Pirro's show. If you incite violence, you get an automatic shot of whiskey. That's how it works. She's not gonna go home without the shot of whiskey. Like, so anyway, I mean, so she's dressing for the part. And of course, and this is not the first time the right has said essentially these things, and guess what? People are armed up. Like there are self-proclaimed vigilante groups that patrol the border. And then there are also amazing humanitarian organizations that also leave out water for people who are trying to cross the border. Wanna guess who's more heavily policed? Yeah, we've all seen Border Patrol agents dumping fresh water out that was left there for migrants so that they, wouldn't die. And look, it's a little bit of a no man's land. And once again, we absolutely need to defund Border Patrol and ICE. Like you do not understand. They are vastly overfunded. They have more money than I believe every other department combined, every other federal department combined. Border Patrol supersedes that budget. We've poured endless amounts of money into the border. And maybe it's time to actually spend money, fixing the broken immigration system, putting more judges in asylum courts, having people actually be able to make their case, be able to live safely. Not to mention, what Kamala Harris did last week in terms of going to Guatemala and telling people not to come here, and then giving a very small amount of vaccines to the people of Guatemala, like 500,000, which is nothing. There's far more that can be done, but yeah, Lara, she knows where she is. This is nothing new, and yeah, it will lead to people dying.
Yep, and it's Fox, so they'll never get in trouble for any of it. Now, you in what you were saying, you expressed, obviously like a desire for the system to focus on actually helping the people who are being victimized by the system. She wants to sort of pretend to do that as well. She went on to say, these people should never make this dangerous journey here. It's bad for Americans. It's bad for the migrants. It's bad all around. So, like, I apologize if I pitched her as not caring about those people. She acknowledges it's bad for them and wants it to be worse because after that dangerous journey, she wants them to meet gun-toting Southerners. That's what she wants to be waiting for them. Like, so there's the people who leave the water in the desert, and then there's the people who want someone with a shotgun to be standing there to take matters into their own hands. So that's fun. Now, I think we have a little bit more, actually, I think this focusing on Jeanine Pirro, so get ready for that. Hopefully we have subtitles for the slurring, but here is what she had to say.
This is a vice president who is a woman. You and I both want women to succeed, but it looks so much like the woman is in over her head. Even in my open, I wanted to say, put on your big girl pants and stop with the giggling. Stop looking like you don't know how to answer a question.
I love that in America, you can just take someone randomly that posts on Facebook and give them a TV show. That's just Jeanine Pirro just yelling, put on your big girl pants.
I love women. I want them to succeed, and I believe that we should stick together, solidarity. That being said, you are an evil, dirty bitch, and I hate everything that you do.
There was like a little bit of your Susan Collins there, but it sort of worked.
It kind of,
100%.
There was a bit of Collins, but I know how to do Jeanine Pirro. I try. Like I'm not as good as Cecily.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have Cecily to talk about this, but yeah, look, I have problems with Kamala Harris. Trust me. On this issue, I have problems with Kamala Harris. The issue with Kamala Harris isn't that she needs to put on her big girl pants. That's not the actual issue. And bear in mind, as wrong as Kamala has been on this and many other issues, there's nothing she was gonna say on that trip that would result in Jeanine Pirro like happily tipping a martini to her or anything like that. That wasn't actually going to happen. And finally, the irony of like saying, stop your giggling like you don't know how to answer a question. And then Laura Trump giggles a little bit. Like, no, we're being serious now. That's the thing, we're saying women have to be serious. Anyway, okay, so that's unfortunately all the time we have. We're gonna be doing our top 10 list. Francesca, thank you as always. Everyone check out the Bituation Room. It's awesome. JR was just on it, so go check that out. Yeah. We're gonna be doing our top 10 list. So if you're a member on YouTube, check that out later on. And until next time, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. I'll see you soon.
What's happening? Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Ritchie. We got a hell of a show today. I got a packed show full of exposure to individuals who deserve to be exposed. We will highlight some things happening around America that we need to talk about. On the show today, don't forget, at the end of the program, we have our bullpen, where someone on the other side of the ideological lane decides to step in the ring and debate me. The person bold enough to step in the bullpen today is a guy named Ash Wright. You've never heard of him? I've never heard of him either, but he will be on the show today. He is a national Republican strategist, and he is all about guns, 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 guns. And he will talk about why he believes that everybody should basically have a gun without any restriction. Should be a remarkable debate. Also, I have to break down some of the news today with me, none other than Farron Cousins, host of Ring of Fire and a TYT partner. But before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, I have the high honor of bringing on former presidential candidate, best-selling author, political activist, and spiritual thought leader, Marianne Williamson is on Indisputable. Marianne, good day, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
It's lovely to have you on the show. I want to get right into it. I heard something really disturbing on Fox News. Now, for me to say it was really disturbing on Fox News, that is saying something, because that is their routine to say things that are disturbing. Laura Trump, the wife of Eric Trump, talked about border security. She said that basically it is time for Americans to start taking matters into their own hands, insinuating that American citizens who live on the border, they should start killing undocumented workers who are not threatening them at all. What are your thoughts about not only immigration policy, but rhetoric like this being spewed on major cable news?
Well, Laura Trump is clearly playing from the Trump playbook. And that family's political base is all about harnessing hatred for political purposes. It's all about the exaltation, almost the celebration of brute force. So it's certainly no surprise that Laura Trump is going there. But we have to face something much bigger than symptoms like Laura Trump on Fox News. We have to face the fact that we are a violent society. This is not just about mass shootings. This is about recognizing, obviously, that in the absence of a government that is willing to stand up to the NRA, that we have a corporate interest that has money all over its hands, gun manufacturers, the millions and billions of dollars that they make off gun manufacture and gun sales. But it goes beyond that. Our economic policies are essentially violent. Clearly, our foreign policy is essentially violent. We are one of the largest arms exporters in the world. Our mass incarceration system is violent. Our police brutality problem is violent. The way we treat peaceful protesters is violent. So I think that it's time for the United States to recognize we will have these eruptions of violence until we commit to nonviolence, until we have a deeper recognition that whether it has to do with slavery, genocide of Native Americans, there is a characterological strain in the American psyche. And too many times we point it out in other people without being willing to recognize it in ourselves and in our own hearts. Social media is violent, Twitter is violent, and that is on the left as much as on the right. So many times the purveyors of emotional violence and psychological violence like to point to the violence on the other side of the political spectrum. And until we realize it's both inside us and outside us, we will not be able to dissolve it from our midst.
You make such a remarkable point, and I want to point to a study that was done about violent imagery on television. There are other countries, including Japan, they have more per capita violence on television, but they have a low actual violence in expression ratio when it comes to criminality. Many conservatives and even some Democrats have pointed to video games and also violence on television, but it has to go deeper than that, Marianne. Because of unaddressed issues. For example, critical race theory, they're saying, okay, you can't teach it. It's not even taught in K through 12 education in the first place. But basically analyzing the violence of America and how that violence has been institutionalized, ingrained into the culture of who we are. How do we attack that?
Well, I think, first of all, I want to go back for a moment to this issue of video games and violence on television, because this is very significant in terms of brain development of young children. When a 10-year-old watches a violent image in a video game or on a television, it's a different brain filtering than when a 40-year-old sees that. I was reading a story about a 16-year-old or 17-year-old who had committed a murder and actually said to the police in an investigation, well, I do it on video games all day. I mean, clearly the development of recognizing the difference between a game and a real person needs to be actually fostered, and that has to do with the development, the proactive development of greater peace. In terms of any kind of sociological theory, any kind of political theory, if this work is not being done, must we recognize the systemic issues, whether they have to do with racial, whether they have to do with economics or any other area? Must we do this kind of externalized investigation, research, and understanding? Yes. But once again, as Martin Luther King said, we must have a qualitative change in our souls as well as a quantitative change in our circumstances. And too many people purveying the work of justice today, talking about a more compassionate society, are doing it from a very angry place. And as someone who's been through that arc of development in my own heart, angry left-wingers, angry anybody, are not going to bring peace to the world. So I think we have to do the work in our own hearts, stop doing so much projection onto other people as much as analysis having to do with politics and economics and history.
During your presidential campaign, I found it quite remarkable that you did not turn political in any of those debates. You did not turn political in any of your interviews. And some people thought, because of your spiritualist point of view and your let love conquer all point of view, that it was somehow naive. However, it is something that we are well aware, being self-analytical creates true transformation. And in order for true transformation to take place, you must acknowledge that something is wrong. And now you have a societal construct involved in the systemic game of not acknowledging or being self-analytical, even with historical injustices that are easily proven. And that is because we have veered away from a place of a country that actually loves.
I think that in terms of my presidential campaign, I think I was the most political candidate of all. If you actually looked at my policy positions, when it comes to race, for instance, I was the one who actually had a plan for reparations.
You're the only one.
What could be more political? I was the one who was calling out chemical companies for what they're doing to the food. I was the one calling out the fact that we don't just have a healthcare system, we have a sickness care system. I, along with a couple of others, were making the strong comments about the military-industrial complex. So the idea that it didn't turn political, the problem is the dominant political conversation in our country today is stuck somewhere back in 1987. I think I was having a political conversation which is very 21st century, which does have to do with recognizing we must take on the historical issues, the moral issues, the emotional issues, the psychological issues, and even the spiritual issues if we are going to address the transformational elements that have to occur, including, by the way, I talked about a Department of Peace, because the issues that we have today with gun violence, we act so shocked every time it happens. We shouldn't be shocked. And also the other thing I want to say about being naive. People think I'm naive. Let me tell you what's naive. I'll tell you what's naive. Thinking we can continue the way we are and even survive on this planet for another 100 years. What's naive is to think we can continue the way we are and feel guaranteed that we will have a democracy in another 100 years. That's what's naive. And I think looking at things from a more integrative approach is a 21st century sophistication. And that is true scientifically as well as morally.
I like the way you put that, Marianne, especially how you illustrated that you actually brought more policy detail than anyone else. I remember covering you on my radio show, and I said, this sister is the only one who actually has a reparations plan. The other Democrats were talking about perhaps maybe if the right conditions came, we could study it. You actually had a plan and you put a number to the plan. You were the only one that already offered a number to that plan. But I love how you connect that your campaign was actually hyper political and based on the root definition of politics, which means to be concerned with the dynamics of your country. That's what politics actually means. You are correct. Based on that terminology and that definition of politics, you are the one who provided more details than anyone else. I only have a couple of minutes, but I want to make sure I get this question on the record with you. You've had places like Texas, they have passed ridiculous gun laws that basically allow it to be the real wild, wild west. Even though most Texans disagree with those gun laws, that did not stop the leadership class from passing them. What are your thoughts about this new direction of state legislatures passing gun laws that do not mandate that you have a license to carry, a permit?
On the issues of guns, on the issues of voting rights, on the issues of women's right to choose, on so many issues, the most nefarious things that are going on are on the level of state legislation. Too often when it comes to the left, people like to show up for the hot and sexy federal campaigns. Every 4 years, the presidential, maybe the midterms. The right wing has been actually more politically sophisticated. They know you gotta run for the school board. You gotta run in local elections. You've gotta run for the state legislature. And I think part of the awakening that must occur now, I meet so many young people who say, how can we pressure our leaders? I say, don't think in terms of pressuring them, think in terms of replacing them. Run for city council, get started, run for your state legislature. We have abdicated the field electorally in too many ways when it comes to those state houses, and that's what has to change first in our thinking and then in our behavior in Texas and all around the country.
Marianne, you definitely are a thought leader and a spiritual leader, and we appreciate your time on Indisputable. You did not let me down. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Good luck with your show.
Thank you. All right, we got more Indisputable.
We're very honest that we're progressives. We call the Young Turks Homo progressives, and we support progressive candidates.
There has been this reemergence of political activism, especially among young people.
This weekend was the second Women's March, both across the US and across the world. So these people are not simply marching, they're not simply talking, they're also running for office. And when they do run, they're gonna make a difference.
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful. Why? He raised a lot of money. But there's someone finally challenging him.
We need to have representation that advocates as fiercely for working class people as possible from this seat.
If candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even get a little bit of media attention outside of what the Young Turks does, they have an excellent chance of winning. She's gonna win, she's gonna win.
68% reporting.
The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. So I don't care what you and your corporate cronies want. What I care about is what the American people want.
We believe in total change. Everything runs on donor money. And that is what we will fight, and that is exactly why they don't like us.
We're having fun, it's election night.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
Here we go again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Crowley. Down goes Crowley. Down goes Manafort. Down goes Cohen. Women came out in record numbers in the primaries. They said you'll be lucky to get one candidate. We now have 12 that have won their primaries. Bezos and Amazon announcing that they are going to go to a 15-hour minimum wage.
We're making progress. Let's keep going.
Many of these women made history.
The biggest victories, all women of color. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Sharice Davids and Deb Haaland.
And I want to go to Congress because I want to change those things.
I'm calling it. Jamal Bowman has won. Down goes Engel. Down goes Engel.
For a long time, we have not had progressives in power. It's going to be something to behold.
Welcome to the Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This
That's
is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word. Okay, this is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull piss.
Drink it, swallow it,
No.
spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this. Cheers to Brett Ehrlich. Climax.
Uranus smells like farts.
Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening? No, that's just wrong. Every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze.
Yes.
Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
All right, welcome back to Indisputable. Okay, let me go back to this statement that Laura Trump made. Laura Trump on Fox News basically said people need to start taking matters into their own hands as it relates to what's happening at the border. She cited Biden has been a failure. And I want you to remember something because this is quite staggering to think about. She's advocating for American citizens to kill undocumented workers. Now remember, the prerequisite to killing someone is that your life is actually in danger or the life of somebody else is in danger. So she is literally promoting murder on Fox News. Now she has not been censored by Fox News. Fox News has not come out and said her statements were inappropriate, but she is telling people in the United States of America, American citizens, to kill brown people who are seeking an opportunity to survive. Now, here's what's interesting about this entire debate as it relates to immigration policy. You know the federal law that says you cannot work in America legally without being documented? And how we penalize factory workers by arresting 600 and 700 at one time. And you see this visual of them being arrested because the authorities have alerted the local media to make sure you capture these individuals who are simply trying to work. You capture them on camera. Okay, the same federal law that makes it against the law for undocumented workers to work in America is the same federal law that also makes it illegal to hire them. How many times have you seen a CEO, a COO, a hiring manager, human resources director being arrested at the same time? The same federal law connects. Let me read this from Cornell Law School. Making employment of unauthorized aliens unlawful in general. It is unlawful for a person or other entity, A, to hire or to recruit or refer for a fee for employment in the United States, an alien knowing the alien is an unauthorized alien as defined in subsection H3 with respect to such employment. That's the federal statute. That federal statute says it is a federal crime to hire undocumented workers. But you do not see the emphasis placed on the rich folks that provide the employment opportunity. 88%, and some stats have it as high as 92% of undocumented individuals that come to America, they come to America to find employment. That's why they come to the United States in the first place. But American policy and the narrative in the media and the discussion amongst many in the political hemisphere will not talk about the rich people who bring them here or who attract them here. And let's stop calling them illegals, because there is no person illegal, period, on this planet, nowhere. To chop it up with me and to break down some of the news of the day, I have none other than Farron Cousins, host of Ring of Fire and a TYT partner, my big homie. What's going on, brother?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on Indisputable. I do have a clip from Laura Trump, but before I get to that clip, I want to get your reaction to the fact that you just had a person advocate for the murder of undocumented individuals coming to the United States of America.
It's terrifying. I mean, I did a segment on this clip as well today, just because it's one of those things that you asked her, did she really go out there and say these things? And look, the clip speaks for itself, and she threw in a word, and I'll talk about this after the clip, after you show the clip, but she threw in one word that may, that's the key word there, prevent her from being in trouble for what she said here. And again, I'll tease that out a little more after they show the clip. But yeah, I mean, is this incitement to violence? By the letter of the law, yes, it appears to be so. But overall, it's just disgusting. And this is what the Republicans have been doing for a long time now, ever since Biden took over, trying to paint the border as some uncontrollable, catastrophe. Ted Cruz has been pushing it with his little trips down there. But really, it's no different than what we saw for the last 4 years. We have, Customs and Border Patrol is down there arresting people. They're throwing them in detention centers. We're deporting people. So I don't understand why Republicans were cool with it for 4 years, and suddenly now Biden's doing the same thing, and now suddenly it's not good enough. It's all talking points. It's all fluff. These people don't know what they're talking about, and that's why you end up with stupid talk from people like Laura Trump that could easily end up getting somebody killed.
Yeah, let's go to that clip.
And I don't know what you tell the people that live at the southern border. I guess they better arm up and get guns and be ready. And maybe they're gonna have to start taking matters into their own hands. It should never happen. These people should never make this dangerous journey here.
Yeah, that's the statement. And I think maybe you're pointing to the way she contextualized it by almost just insinuating rather than flat out telling people to do so, which by the way is just one of those code things that people like her do.
Yeah, she knew what she was saying there, because it was the word maybe. Maybe this may have to happen if it meets this certain set of circumstances. I know she had to have known the way she was phrasing that to get her point across, but also to avoid, possibly any kind of legal liability for that specific statement, because she's not, she didn't explicitly say you have to go shoot people, but telling them to arm up and you may have to take matters in your own hands. We can pretty much go ahead and assume the meaning of that phrase. Anybody is gonna know the dog whistle really that she is blowing there, but in a court of law, that word maybe might be the only thing that keeps her out of trouble. And I would love for somebody to test this in a court of law. I would love to see some kind of punishment for these reckless, irresponsible, and downright dangerous comments that she made. I would love to see if her defense would stand up in court if they try to argue that the word maybe, somehow prevents her from actually having incited any kind of violence. We've seen the kind of violence that the Trump supporters are capable of doing. We have seen it for far too long. And she knew who she was talking to with that clip, I have no doubt.
Absolutely, and look at the procession here. You have places like Texas passing laws that will allow anyone to basically have a gun without a permit. You have this new push for individuals to just arm themselves for some reason, right? And then you have the commentary of let's start killing undocumented individuals being promoted by an actual employee. She's a contributor for Fox News, and there is no penalty from this organization, no penalty from the company of Fox. Nobody comes out and says this person should never say anything like this, and because of that, we are going to now fire her. So you don't have repercussions, you do not have accountability, and here's what will happen next, brother. You will see other Republicans, other Trumpites, they will pick up on this messaging and they will start to self-promote it in their silos. And that is what we've seen time and time again. You have an extreme statement being adopted by what is now becoming the mainstream of the Republican Party, those that are loyal to Trump and not to a Republican agenda only.
And we've seen so many over the years, these extremist groups, the Minutemen militias that go down there patrolling the border, just looking for a reason to get violent with anybody that they see crossing the border. And this is the kind of message that people like that have been waiting to hear from somebody that they admire and respect. And Laura Trump, by virtue of being a Trump, is one of those people. The judges right now that are hearing the cases for the Capitol rioters, I think you've had at least 4 or 5 different ones write in their opinions this dangerous rhetoric coming from Donald Trump and coming from other folks as well, obviously. It's going to lead to more violence, not just with the election being stolen, but things like this as well, because these judges are looking into the eyes of these Capitol rioters, of these Trump supporters, and they're sizing them up pretty quickly. And they understand that this is the kind of person that is easily manipulable. Yeah. They hear something, they take it as a direct order and they go do it without question. That is the danger that we are facing with these Trump supporters. And that's why these comments from Laura Trump are even more disgusting than what you usually get from Fox News, because we have seen how easily those supporters can be manipulated with just the tiniest little push. And that's what we could easily see from this as well.
Let me go to our next story. Because this is something developing. It happened over the weekend in DC. And I was alerted because someone on social media actually tagged me and tagged TYT. And I started to look into this story, and it did not have a national presence as of yet, but local news picked up on it quickly. There's a sports bar called Nelly Sports Bar in DC. Nelly Sports Bar just opened for full capacity last weekend, just over the weekend. They said, okay, we are opening up full capacity. They had a big crowd there. What you see in a video is so disturbing. It is so horrendous that it shocks the conscience. And this is a young black female being dragged out of Nelly Sports Bar by her hair. She's being dragged by her hair. Let's go to the first video. Now, many people on social media are saying, well, what did she do? I don't give a damn what she did. I do not care what she did. And that's not the issue here. She's inside of a club being dragged out. If she did something illegal, call the police, put her in handcuffs, apprehend her, take her to jail, okay? You have a security guard dragging this black female, young black female, out of a restaurant by her hair down the steps on her damn back. Do you really care what she did? Of course not. If she did something illegal, she would have been arrested. And by the way, she was not arrested. She was simply accosted, assaulted, and taken out of that bar by her hair. Now, a gentleman did decide to intervene. I don't know if the guy was with her. I don't know. I have no words for him. I don't have any criticism for him whatsoever, because in the context of what he saw a person being assaulted. He saw a young woman being assaulted and he jumped in. I have no issue with him at all in this conversation. Now, according to another report, the young lady did speak to a local journalist after the event. And here's some of that conversation.
It was an altercation in there. They was trying to get some other people out because somebody else brought a bottle in there. Somehow I got mixed up in the altercation because I looked like somebody else and I got hit and dragged down the steps. I didn't do nothing wrong, and that's all I want. Is first walking up the steps and getting dragged right back down the steps.
To see the video of yourself being dragged down the steps, what is that like for you?
It's a little bit much, you know.
What do you want of Nelly's?
Huh?
What do you want of Nelly's?
I want a bond.
She said she wants that restaurant, that bar gone. Nelly's did release a statement. Let me read this statement. We were incredibly upset and disturbed to see the unfortunate event that took place at Nelly's last night. We are undergoing a full investigation of the situation at Nelly's. We foster an inclusive and safe environment, so events like this are completely unacceptable to us, Nelly's Sports Bar. I did hear from some of the protesters that they had a Black Lives Matter sign at the establishment. But once again, you have extreme violence. I know this is not the police, I understand that. This is a security guard, police-like, okay? Treating an unarmed black female in this manner and willing to do so in front of black patrons at a restaurant. We have lost our way. Brother, what are your thoughts about it?
You know, it's interesting that, you know, you started talking about, like, people say, well, what's the context of this? Okay, well, yeah, you're right. The context doesn't matter. And obviously, if she had done anything that was even close to illegal, that would have already been included in all of the news stories about this. And the reason it wasn't was, one, obviously it didn't happen, but two, they didn't even have apparently the right person, according to the young woman herself. You know, she's not the one who, what was it, broke a bottle is the issue. They broke a bottle, and so you drag her out, risk severe injury to this woman just because you're some kind of wannabe Rambo that got stuck working as a security guard for a bar. I mean, that's what we're looking at here. I fully think that whoever this man was, you know, dragging her down the stairs, is somebody that doesn't care about human life whatsoever. You know, they got this position because they probably felt something was lacking inside of them. Maybe they have the chance to go be this big tough commando. Maybe they weren't good enough to get on a real police force to where they could go cause real damage. So maybe this is the best that person could do, but it's sickening to watch this happen because there is literally no excuse for this whatsoever. And as far as the Black Lives Matter sign in their window goes, I think a lot of companies like this are just using it really as marketing. You know, it doesn't represent at all what they actually stand for. They stick it up there because they think, oh, this is good. People, you know, maybe people come in because of this, think that we're good people and spend lots of money at our establishment. It's branding for them at this point. It means nothing to them other than dollars.
Yeah, and see, you got to be very careful with companies like this. There are restaurants I won't eat at today. For example, the Waffle House. All right, that's a Southern thing. Some of y'all around the country may not even know what the Waffle House is. But if you go to Georgia, you got a Waffle House on every corner. Well, a couple of years ago, there was a black female who was assaulted by an off-duty police officer who was working security in a Waffle House. And this was over a spoon and a fork. One of the employees decided to charge this woman 50 cents for plasticware, even though she had already purchased her meal. And she says, listen, I'm not paying 50 cents for plasticware. They exchanged some words and she was told to leave. Well, she did not leave upon command because she's not a slave. And the older white police officer who was there decided to assault her, took her shirt off, her body was exposed, and it was just an insane thing. Well, the Waffle House establishment, they came out before an investigation. They came out basically hours later and stood behind this police officer, even when the jurisdiction he worked for said, wait a minute, we got some questions about this. Waffle House had no questions about it. So I decided to never eat at a Waffle House again. And brother, let me tell you something. I used to eat at the Waffle House a lot. They lost a little chunk of change with me protesting and boycotting that establishment. But it goes to the place of not valuing not just black life, but black consumers. You mean to tell me you're willing to do this not only to black life, but to your consumer base? We all know in various cities in Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, the majority of people that eat at these Waffle Houses are black folks in many other cities. Now you have Nellie's. Nellie's, once again, another establishment that caters to the urban culture. They have not, or at least a security guard has expressed, because this is a person that works for the company, that they do not appreciate black consumerism. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I remember that Waffle House video you were talking about too, very vividly. That was another one of those that's just shocking because of how crazy the response was from that police officer at the time. But the situation with Nellie's, where they say, listen, we're gonna investigate this. What is it? What is there to investigate? What do you have to investigate? The guy works for you. You walk up to him and you say, what the hell? What the hell? What the hell? Like, yeah. That's how that conversation needs to go. And you tell him, listen, you got 2 minutes to give me the best reason you can think of before you walk out my door forever. You've destroyed everything we're trying to build here because you couldn't control yourself for 5 damn minutes to figure out what actually needed to take place because of a broken bottle. I'm typically not, the kind of person that says, let's fire people. We got an unemployment problem as it is. But this kind of person should not be working in this industry given this kind of behavior. There's no excuse for this, and you can't give them the opportunity to do this again. If I was the business owner, this individual would have been gone moments after that incident happened.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how Nellie's play this, because this is not a police officer with qualified immunity. This is not a police officer with a police union backing him. This is not a police officer that has the blue shield connected to him. So not only should this police officer be fired, or this security guard be fired, this wannabe police officer should also have a charge. And if I were the owner of Nellie's, I would be, one, releasing a statement that I fired that clown. And number two, making sure that everyone knows I'm working with local authorities to see if we can actually press criminal charges, because to me, not only did you assault a customer, but you created a disorder in my establishment. So while I may not have power over how the police charge that individual as it relates to the young lady, she has to press charges, I do have power for the disorder you have brought to my establishment.
And of course, just the general destruction of this business reputation, that's not something that's gonna be built. Even if they come out and they fire this guy immediately, the damage is done. And it's done because of that one individual. And I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, I believe they've set up a GoFundMe for the young woman that was dragged down the stairs. I think so. So everybody, check that out, because that's obviously something. It was nice to see her in the response video that she appears to be okay, but you never know with some kind of injury like that if anything could have been, sustained. So worth checking out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope she stops talking to the media, gets lawyered up, and sues the hell out of Nellie's. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable. We'll be right back.
So a lot of progressive office holders are doing something fun. I like fun. They're doing the last 2 years in 2 minutes. Okay, we're gonna try it here. First, I wanna let you guys know about the years before that. And remember, we started the Just Democrats here on the Young Turks. It was officially launched on our air, basically by you guys. And then we featured AOC, we featured Cori Bush, and Ro Khanna became the first ever Just Democrat incumbent, all on the Young Turks. Now, the last 2 years have been a spectacular follow-up to that. So let's put the 2 minutes on the clock and do this. Young Turks got to start back in 2002, and I think we've been an important part of the progressive movement ever since. What we mainly do is amplify the progressive voice and candidates out there, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Right now, we're currently #1 most engaged news politics network online, beating CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, all of them. We're #1 in total minutes watched. That means not only the number of people watching, but how long they watch. We just crossed 20 million followers and 500 million monthly views. Now, why? That's because actually the country's progressive. It's 2/3 progressive. And you guys have allowed us to be your voice, and we're incredibly thankful for that. So what did we do with that voice? Well, let's look at 2019. We went all over the country talking to you guys and the candidates. So we were in Miami, we were in Detroit, we were in Houston, and we were in Iowa. In fact, we were all over Iowa. You guys were all over Iowa, and all of the candidates saw you guys. We had wonderful people speaking, like the one and only Nina Turner at our rallies. Bernie Sanders stopped by, Andrew Yang, Elizabeth Warren. We interviewed almost everyone on the campaign trail, with the exception of Biden and Buttigieg. And we held them accountable. We even did a progressive economic pledge, and so many wonderful people signed on to that. Bernie Sanders, Warren, Marianne Williamson, AOC, the entire squad, Justice Democrats, and so many others. Now, on top of all that, we started a show called The Conversation, where we featured so many progressive thinkers, writers, and candidates. And one of the candidates we featured in 2019 was Jamal Bowman. Here comes Jamal Bowman. Then we had an amazing 2020. We hired a climate reporter. Damage Report passed 500,000 subscribers. Young Turks passed 5 million subscribers. We're getting the message out to more and more people. Bernie Sanders comes on in the heat of the primary. He comes on after the election to say what we're gonna do for the future. And then Marie Newman wins. Jamal Bowman wins. Cori Bush wins. And then just when you thought it couldn't get any better, here comes Nina Turner. Hello, somebody. And she's running for Congress, and she comes on the Young Turks first. On election week, we had nearly 2 million hours of viewing. We're #1 destination for progressives. You made all that happen. This is amazing, and thank you for those 2 years. What, I went past 2 minutes? Of course!
Viewers had asked for an interview with the TYT Lizard. Mr. Lizard. Oh, you changed colors today. Nice. I don't even know how you feel about us. Do you even like us?
Well, you guys made me this awesome house, so I'm kind of in your debt. I was found outside on the street, and you gave me a home. Granted, it was a really crappy home for a while, but then through the power of fundraising, I became a person who has a multi-level Trump-style mansion.
You do. By the way, you never looked better, man. Normally, you're just green or just brown, but today you're in mid-lizard, right?
I'm not very smart. I'm a lizard, so I don't know how the science works. I guess this is just my mood. It's not every day that thresholds like this are broken. I'm just so excited. I can't contain my pigmentation.
And now you're showing it off.
Yep.
Yeah, I've never seen the lizard like this before.
Let me remind everyone that Black Lives Matter is not simply a slogan. It's not just a campaign, but it's actually a social mandate. And if you have companies who engage in the slogan of Black Lives Matter without engaging in the social mandate to behave in a way where Black lives actually matter, then they are charlatans. They are hypocritical and not living up to the creed that they proclaim. Let me read some of our chats. We got a super chat. And let me also remind everyone, if you're watching me on the Damage Report, My big homie John is not going to allow me to continue to broadcast there forever. Make sure you join us on Indisputable TYT on YouTube. If you're watching me on the Damage Report YouTube, make sure you right now subscribe to Indisputable TYT, youtube.com/Indisputable TYT. Make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel now, all right? Make sure you do that because one day you may wake up and I am no longer on the TDR page, okay? And we're very thankful for John allowing us to simulcast there. But make sure you join us, hit subscribe, and also hit the bell so you can be alerted when Indisputable is live. Let's go to some of the super chats. Cray Souffle says, yeah, during the LA riots in 1992, I clearly saw buildings under threat of being looted, put up signs on the properties reading black owned when many definitely were not. Once again, same game, different play, right? Also, Cray Souffle says, welcome back, Farron. Curl Dragon, Dr. Richard, you are awesome, especially with your show in mind. I gifted my mom in the States a membership today. That's awesome. Celebrating my second vaccine shot over the weekend. Great. Looking forward to watching your show live today. Get it. Max Payne says, I don't know if Laura has security protection, but she needs protection from her own brain. You're absolutely correct. There should be a barrier in between. YouTube super chat, Lawrence Wells. The US has the highest rate of private gun ownership per capita than any other country. Even a war zone like Syria is a distant second. There is no justification to advocate for more murder weapons. Well said. Non-human humanist says other countries treat even prisoners differently incarcerated, but respected. And white people in the US have real issues in Europe, people are shocked. The artist says, welcome Marianne Williamson, good to see you again from our first segment. Yes, it was very good to see her. Andrew Zafuto says Derek Chauvin was a bouncer on his off days. That pretty much sums it up. Good point. Forbesilla says, dude, I broke 2 glasses on New Year's 2020 and was so hammered my parents had to pick me up. Never did they try to drag me out of that bar or attack me. Good point. Also, back to Marianne. Forbesilla says, I love hearing her voice, it's very soothing. It really is, isn't it? It's nice to engage in conversation with her. Alexis Merrill Dragon Queen says, this woman is brilliant and I am not familiar with her. Guess I am here to learn. Yeah, she's remarkable. Make sure you can read one of her many books. I think she has 14 books, but she is a wise individual. Matthew Koch says, I have not heard her speak before. I like her voice. Yes, keep them coming. Remember, join us on the Indisputable TYT YouTube page. Make sure you do that. Central Committee rating with a party of 676. That's my Twitch folks. Thank you for doing that. Peachy Pack says, I think the real statement should have been, we are sorry the public found out, referencing Nelly's bar. We got a lot happening. Okay. Back to my big homie. We got Farron Cousins, host of Ring of Fire. Listen, man, there's this situation that warrants our attention. Now, I want to warn everyone that the content is violent. This is police on citizen violence. Over the weekend, police officers in Ocean City, Maryland enforced a ban on vaping, okay? On vaping by tasing a group of young black men walking on the boardwalk for vaping. According to reports, police were enforcing this ban. The teenager who had his hands up and was not in any way physically interacting with police was in fact tased. This young man then collapses to the ground and was hogtied, okay? The incident riled up the crowd. His friends were nearby. And notice the white people who jumped in and were more involved in some of these boys remained untouched. Check this video out.
Chill. Stop. Get out. What is wrong with you? Back up.
It's a damn shame. Now here's another part, a few seconds of this video.
Resisting. I'm not resisting. You tell me what you arrested me for. And get me.
There's more. Okay, we don't have the third video. All right. So you got the idea. These were teenagers. These were young black men. And in some of the videos, you can actually see white patrons who are getting rowdy as well because of what they've seen. Now, they were not tased. They were not hog-tied. They were not kneed. But you clearly see what's happening on this boardwalk. Now, maybe I've missed something, brother, but is vaping this damn serious?
That's just, I can't, you lose the words. There's not words. There's not words. When you watch that officer put his entire body weight into kneeing that restrained individual on the ground, there's no words anymore. You know, we see so many things like this. And I watched that video yesterday on social media, and it's one of those things where I closed my phone afterward because, my God, you can't you can't go numb to it.
Yep.
But at the same time, what more can we do? What more can we do? Why is nothing actually being done about this? And that's what makes me so angry about this, and pushes you to the point of not having the words for it, is because, my God, how many more videos do we have to see? How many more times do we have to watch a similar situation? I mean, thank God this kid is still alive. I guess we can be thankful that they didn't shoot him. But this is an event. Again, the kid was vaping, and now because of that, he is going to have this horrific memory that's going to follow him around every day for the rest of his life. It's going to pop into his head at random times. He's not going to be able to control when that memory comes back. That's how PTSD works. And it's gonna be a horrifying experience for him going forward. That is burned into his brain. That pain that he felt, he will be able to feel it whenever he closes his eyes and thinks about it.
Yeah.
And it's just, you can't fix that. You can't reform it. And I don't know. I don't know.
It's insanity, man. And once again, these police officers who did this, they are not in fear of any personal ramification because of qualified immunity and other protections from police unions. And this is a great case study for why we need to eliminate the ridiculous rule of qualified immunity, because saying that we have qualified immunity for cops just because it's a dangerous job is ridiculous. The most dangerous job in America is cutting down damn trees. That job is more dangerous than any other job in the United States, leads to more death per capita and more injury per capita than being a police officer. I'm not downing those who serve as cops. I'm giving you the facts. The fact is, it is not the most dangerous job in the United States of America. Let me switch gears. We only got a few minutes, man. This is, I wish a Karen would. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a Karen. This Karen likes to discount shop at Ross. This Karen is discount Karen, but still a full price racist. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your Karen of the day.
What you are. Please leave. Oh, I'm leaving. Please leave. I mean, you're gonna be leaving soon too. I promise you that. You so good. Okay, that's fine. You guys want to call racism? You're more racism than white person ever. Okay. You black. Okay, that doesn't bother me. Okay, have a good day. Don't dance around on your porch like a whore. Get out.
I didn't know discount dresses were that serious. Now, Karen, this Karen, was shopping at the discount store Ross, and she decided to say racial slurs to the black female manager. The black female manager kept her cool the entire time. Better you than me, Madam Manager. That was one of the most insane racial rants we have seen in a long time. And remember, there are people around, there are children inside of this store. But this is what came out of this shopper at Ross. Farron?
Hell hath no fury like a white woman mildly inconvenienced. But no, and I understand, we have to censor these kinds of things. We can't show people the unadulterated footage, but I do encourage everyone, if you can, go look at the original footage. Go look at the uncensored footage, and you're gonna understand why that is so shocking. The producer here sent this to me, and I watched it. And you just left in disbelief because you really, folks, I have to say I wouldn't encourage you to, listen to this if it weren't so just god awful, disgusting what this woman did, going from annoyed shopper to ready to throw on the white hood in about 10 seconds. I mean, absolutely disgusting. And thank God though, that everybody's got cell phones and cameras on them nowadays, not just to capture incidents like this where people reveal who they truly are, but also, the other things we've talked about with the police brutality, the security guard at Nellie's. We wouldn't know about any of this if it wasn't for, people out there whose immediate reaction is, let me film this so we can have accountability. And that's probably one of the only good things really to emerge from the digital age is it's hard for people to get away with things when everything is on camera.
Yeah, and see, somebody knows her, right? She works somewhere. I'm sure she will say that she has black friends. I'm sure that her children probably go to a school where they have black playmates. Here's what I want to do, man, and this is one of my goals in life, and I believe I'm called to do this. I want to expose racists for who they are. I want them to be embarrassed because of who they are. I want people who affiliate with racists to be embarrassed to say they affiliate with that racist, because there's a push now to make racism cool, to make racism trendy, to make racism sexy. So people like myself, you, and others who are watching this show, we have to make sure we place it in the proper context. And by doing so, maybe we restrict some of the overt racism, because the reality is we may not be able to replace their hearts, but we can in fact replace the stigma connected to Karens like this, because this is a dangerous individual ready to go off at any time. And man, you hit the nail on the head when you said hell hath no fury like a white woman mildly inconvenienced. That's a hell of a line, right? Because what is going on in a Ross that would make you say what you said to a black female manager that was nice as she could be in the middle of your racist rant against her?
And it's funny too in the video, not funny by any stretch, but she says the racist things, walks out, but then feels the need to come back and be, like triple down on the racism. Like she just thought of this really great racist insult and she had to rush back in and say it. And here's the thing, this is probably not a woman who goes around and acts like that all the time, I imagine. But what these videos do is it shows us this ingrained racism in individuals like this. Because like you said, she's probably gonna go out there and say, listen, I have black friends. I hang out with them all the time. I'm certainly not racist. No, you hold these beliefs and you've held them in for so long that at the first opportunity, you erupted like a volcano. Because you've been wanting to do that forever. Yeah. You just never felt it was socially acceptable. That's the problem with people like that who pretend they aren't racist, but it is bubbling inside of them, just waiting for an opportunity like that to come out.
Well said, brother. Proximity to blackness does not equate to your love for black people. And I want everyone to remember that when we see things like this being highlighted. We are still a country who has not been able to overcome its original sin. And that is the fact that the American government was in the business of allowing white rich men to own black people. All right, my brother, how can people check you out, follow you on social media?
The big YouTube channel, obviously, youtube.com/TheRingOfFire. I also have my own personal YouTube channel. It's at Farron Balanced. That's FARRONBALANCED. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Farron Balanced as well. And that pretty much is everything I've got. But again, the main YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheRingOfFire. It's blowing up. We're hoping by the end of the year we hit 1 million subscribers. So anybody watching, go help us make that happen.
Absolutely, man. And I'm a fan of your commentaries. And brother, I hope you get that 1 million. I actually believe you will. You deserve it. You put out the truth every single day. And I appreciate you being on Indisputable.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget on the other side of the break, we got the bullpen. Who's stepping in the bullpen with me? National Republican strategist Ash Wright will jump in the bullpen. You don't want to miss it. Indisputable.
We're very honest that we're progressives. We call the Young Turks home of progressives, and we support progressive candidates.
There has been this reemergence of political activism, especially among young people.
This weekend was the second Women's March, both across the US and across the world. So these people are not simply marching, they're not simply talking, but they're also running for office. And when they do run, they're gonna make a difference.
Joe Crowley is congressman from New York. He's very powerful. Why? He raised a lot of money. But there's someone finally challenging him.
We need to have representation that advocates as fiercely for working class people as possible from this seat.
If candidates like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez even get a little bit of media attention outside of what the Young Turks does, they have an excellent chance of winning. She's gonna win. She's gonna win.
68% reporting.
The majority of Americans want Medicare for all. So I don't care what you and your corporate cronies want. What I care about is what the American people want.
We believe in total change. Everything runs on donor money. And that is what we will fight. And that is exactly why they don't like us.
We're having fun. It's election night.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has defeated Joe Crowley.
Here we go again.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Down goes Crowley. Down goes Crowley. Down goes Manafort. Down goes Cohen. Women came out in record numbers in the primaries. They said you'll be lucky to get one candidate. We now have 12 that have won their primaries. Bezos and Amazon announcing that they are going to go to a 15-hour minimum wage.
We're making progress. Let's keep going.
Many of these women made history.
The biggest victories, all women of color. Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, Sharice Davids and Deb Haaland.
And I want to go to Congress because I want to change those things.
I'm calling it. Jamal Bowman has won. Down goes Engel. Down goes Engel.
For a long time, we have not had progressives in power. It's going to be something to behold.
Welcome to the Happy Hour, everybody. After a week of soul-crushing news, we break out the good stuff. Good news, good videos, good people, and of course, drink good alcohol. That's the worst thing I've ever had.
This
That's
is the best show.
Full disclosure, we did do a shot right before the show began. It says,
let's
flamingo.
Flamingo.
The reason you had trouble with that word is it's not a word.
Okay.
This is the one of everything.
I've got a rash. Could I just put it on that to see if it'll take it off?
What did you used to think this was?
Bull piss.
Drink it, swallow it, spit it. Oh, that's needed after a day like this.
Cheers to Brett Ehrlich.
Climax. Uranus smells like farts. Because of course it does. This is the worst sketch ever of a perp. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? They found the guy. This is Sophie's super happy dog story of the week.
This dog is so precious and deserves the world. I'm just not drinking that beer.
Here's my dog. This is Onyx.
Yeah, I would just say that he's exotic because he's not your traditional dog. Still 12 out of 10 because they're all good.
Well, if that made you happy, just wait till you see the best thing ever of the week. There is a woman who moves like a horse.
Why do I want to go home and like try this?
We're actually going to show you the running butthole challenge right now. What's happening? No, that's just wrong. Every way. And we'll see you next time.
Hey, Dave. As you can probably see, Skype froze.
Yes.
Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and There was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts. And it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Okay, let's read some of these viewer comments. I appreciate you all for keeping these coming. Members, Electric Miscellanea says the police violently attacked people for vaping. Then they went after the people speaking up for them. People talk about police needing better training, but I think this goes way beyond that. We need to defund and rethink policing in the US. Super Chats, YouTube. Caring of today is out of touch. Prague Man says, caring of today is out of touch with society and the world around them. They don't know how to interact with people outside their community because they've always been entitled. Tesla Ranger says, then Karen takes her mask off. She takes both masks off. Good point. Exquisitely Useless says, the hard pill. There are 20 more videos than Indisputable can air with every passing day. Love the show, love the doctor. Keep fighting that good fight, my friend. Thank you so much, and we shall do that. Twitch, Mr. Unknown says, the worst part is people would just say she was having a bad day. White women throwing tantrums because they feel entitled. Is it new? It happened to Emmett Till. Yeah. Annaville Mario, I think I said that correctly. She has strong, I'm not a racist, my husband employs black people energy. She really does. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure if you are joining us on the TDR YouTube stream, make sure you hop off now and watch us on Indisputable TYT, youtube.com/Indisputable TYT. Subscribe there, it's free, it's easy, takes seconds to do. And hit that bell so you can be alerted when Indisputable is live. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the bullpen. The man bold enough to step into the bullpen today is none other than nationally recognized Republican strategist Ash Wright. Ash Wright's background includes senior political advisor to Commissioner George P. Bush, deputy director of government relations, Texas General Land Office, and political director of the Republican Party of Texas. Him and I actually have something in common. There was a time in my life, Mr. Wright, where I was the political director for the Georgia Democratic Party some time ago. So I understand the party politics, which in a state can be quite chaotic, right?
That's right, for sure.
All right, so based on some of the commentary I've seen and some of the posts you have made, you are a big Second Amendment guy, okay? You are a guns guy. And I don't want to presume your point of view before we get into our discussion. So let me ask you, what do you feel, or how do you feel the Second Amendment connects to the everyday American, and why is it so important to you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, look, to me, the Second Amendment is something that I value, frankly, because someone's trying to take it away from me, if that makes sense, right? So I am, like you said, I'm a big gun guy. I live in rural Texas. I'm a hunter, fisherman. That's just kind of who I am. I have lots of guns, right? I don't own any machine guns or military grade weapons, but I am a big gun, and I like to fight for people's right to own those guns. And frankly, it's just something that I feel like that Americans should have the right to own because someone's trying to take them away from us. So if the government doesn't want me to own guns, then that tells me that we need to have the ability to own guns, if that makes sense. And so that's part of why I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment and why I'm going to fight staunchly for Americans' rights to continue that.
Let me tell you why that doesn't make sense to me. Every right comes with a level of responsibility. There is no right completely unchecked. Even former Justice Scalia talked about how these rights must carry common sense responsibility and restrictions. So let's talk about the freedom of speech. Well, you have the right to say what you want to say without the government limiting that right. But if you say things that infringe on my right to life and liberty, if you say fire in a crowded building and there is no fire in that crowded building, well, you can actually be charged with a crime. The government can say, no. You cannot use your speech to create physical harm to other people. That's not considered speech control, correct?
Yeah, correct. I mean, look, you're absolutely right, and I know you didn't think you were going to hear that today, right? But I think the premise of that is correct. But at the same time, I think, look, we already have that, right? Like sensible Americans that are owning guns are already abiding by the laws, the same laws that we abide by with free speech, like you're talking about. We don't go into buildings and yell fire. We also go down and get background checks when we buy guns. We get the same background checks, whether it's at a gun show or whether you're buying them down at your local gun shop. I mean, I don't carry my gun without a concealed carry license if it's against the law to carry on any premise or in states where they have stricter gun laws. And so we're already abiding by those same things, just like we are in the First Amendment. And so, but continuing to add to that, like over and over and over, like right now with them trying to add, 10-day waiting periods for background checks or ban these military grade, weapons without any like actual formal description of what a military grade weapon is where I think the average American has a problem with this. And so it's kind of, in fact, we've been dealing with this as a country all the way back into the 90s. And that was part of the problem when Bill Clinton passed his ban on assault weapons, was that there was no real definition of what an assault weapon is. And that's essentially what we're going back to today. But that would kind of be my question back to you, which would be, I understand your premise of that, but then what is your take on and where do you think that line is drawn in the sand between my right to own a gun versus also my right to own a gun in a law-abiding manner?
Let me put it to you this way. Our right to own a gun is not our right to own a bazooka. And you understand the point that I'm making. It's the carnage of the weaponry that is called into question. And if you want to look at it technically, knives are considered arms as well. But we've had Supreme Court decisions to kind of split the hairs on what a weapon or what an arms is. But let me disagree with you on the sentiment that most Americans are actually on your side as it relates to this. Pew Research did a poll, brother. And Pew Research conducted this poll and found that 60% of Americans say that gun laws should be tougher. That was up from 57% from last year and 52% from 2017. So as the years progress, more Americans are saying we now need tougher gun laws. Here's another stat, and this is in your state of Texas. And Texas has now passed one of the most, in my opinion, insane gun laws I have ever seen. But let's talk about Texas. 81% of Texans, including 79% of gun-owning households and 79% of Republicans, support requiring a permit to carry a handgun in Texas. However, they just passed a law expressing the exact opposite, or just presented a law expressing the exact opposite of the sentiment of their actual Texans. Here's another stat. 78% of Texans, including 78% of gun-owning households and 73% of Republicans, support requiring all gun buyers, even in a private gun deal, must submit to a criminal background check. So brother, you are out of touch with not only the sentiment of the country, but the sentiment of your own state. So how is it that Texas can get away with proposing a law that's contrary to the expression of their political base and their citizens?
Well, I haven't seen that exact poll, so I can't speak directly to that number, and I'll look it up after we get off. But look, I've seen polling on the other end, and part of the reason why. Well,
brother, do me a favor. Let me say this. I want you to cite the polling on the other side that you've seen.
I have seen internal campaign polling that shows that. I'm not. I mean, I'm under NDAs and contracts. I'm not at liberty to say on air.
Top secret. Wait. Top secret polling.
Well, I wouldn't call it top secret.
Well, if you can't tell me where the polling came from,
the NRA,
who did the polling, and what the polling
has put out a lot of statistics and studies that say most Americans, most Texans, and I believe most Americans who own guns do not support a right to have to go through more background checks. I mean, we already have criminal background checks for every single person that buys a gun. Every time I go down and purchase a firearm, I go through a criminal background check. Every time, if I want to apply for a CHL or a concealed handgun license, I go through a criminal background check. I mean, these laws aren't. I mean, what we do as a country is we mush the data and we kind of make it sound like some individual can just wake up tomorrow morning and go down and buy
in some cases, sir,
that's just not simply the case.
In all due respect, CNN just did a story where they followed a teenager to a gun show in one of the states that had the gun show loophole, where a background check and an ID was not required to purchase from a gun show through a private dealer. That is a problem because it sounds like you're saying that you go through the background checks, and I assume that you would be okay if that was a uniform national law. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I already do that every day. Look, I agree. We need background checks. We need to be able to know people's mental health. We need to, if you have been in federal prison, if you are, committing other crimes. I mean, we do need to know that for gun owners. I'm not arguing that point. What I'm arguing is that we already do that. Now, there may be some. No,
not everyone. Not everyone.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. There may be a few instances where we don't do that, and those people should be held accountable for that. But increasing it throughout, like increasing regulation on me, on the law-abiding citizen, isn't going to ever prevent 100% of people going down and breaking the law and selling firearms illegally. And that's my point, is that we're regulating the people that are already following the regulations.
Okay, let me ask you this, because I got to get to it. I don't want to get bogged down on one point. Are you in agreement with the Texas legislation, which says you do not have to possess a permit to carry a gun? Are you for that legislation or against it?
Correct. I mean, look, yes, because when you go down and purchase a firearm, you're already going through the checks that say you're allowed to own this firearm. So there shouldn't have to be an additional permit to carry this. Now, I don't personally carry a gun on me. It's not a law that I'm going to take to take a use of. But I do think that we should have the right to do that, and I think that makes our citizens safer. It allows them to protect themselves, and that's something that we need, frankly, across the whole country.
So let me ask you this question, because I find it quite ironic, brother, that you will say you're okay with Texas having this proposed legislation to where a citizen in Texas does not need a permit to carry a gun. Let me ask you this. Do you think you need a license to drive a car?
Yes.
Do you think you need a license to get married? It's called a marriage license.
I mean, yes. I mean, there is a marriage license, but I think a marriage is ordained by God, not by the state. So I guess, technically, I guess I would say I don't believe you have to have a marriage license.
Really
but I do say, but look, the difference but look, here's the difference, right? I do think you need a license to drive a car, right? I need to go through a background check to drive a gun or to buy a gun. The difference is that we don't ban cars, or we don't strengthen and go through more regulation for 16-year-olds to drive cars, even though that's actually not true. A number of people drive from like drunk driving or die from drunk driving, et cetera.
No, sir.
I mean,
that's not true. What you're saying
guns
is
are
not true.
Guns don't kill people. People kill people.
Okay,
Cars don't drive drunk. People drive drunk.
Okay.
Does that make
so So no, it doesn't make sense. Number one, there are restrictions on how 16-year-olds can use a car. In most states, 16-year-olds cannot have full driving access without having an adult driver in the vehicle. So you're wrong on that. 16-year-olds are restricted and regulated. Number two, manufacturers of cars are restricted on the kind of car they can actually promote for sale. There are certain cars that if they don't have a certain preset speed limit, and if they have particular elements added to the car, they are no longer street ready. They cannot be driven as a regular car. So there are common sense restrictions for cars. There are common sense restrictions
for guns as well, right? Like I can't go down to my local gun shop and buy a machine gun today. I would have to have a.
But you can make one.
A license, a federal.
You can make. But think about this. You can make a machine gun. Why is that not regulated? Why can't we just say, listen, if you can't buy it, right? Let's make it illegal to make one. Let's not allow that loophole to stand.
Well, it's illegal to own one without the proper licensing. So even if you build it, it doesn't negate the fact that
you have to register it. You have to register it with the ATF. But still, think about the common sense, brother. I think you're a smart guy. So let me go back to the foundation principle that I'm trying to make here. If it's illegal to buy it and it's illegal to own it, why is it not illegal to make it and then illegal to own it? Think about it this way. If it's illegal to have narcotics and it's illegal to use narcotics, why would it all of a sudden become legal if you made the narcotic yourself?
Well, but look, I get what you're saying. I think we're coming to the same point, which is we don't need to regulate. I mean, you can't go out and just purchase, for example, bump stocks or a lot of things that it takes to build these guns. I mean, you make it sound like anyone can just drive down to the local gun store and buy enough guns to create a machine gun, and that's really, frankly, just not the truth. And so it already is illegal and regulated extremely throughout the process. And once you build it, it's illegal to own it without having it regulated. So I mean, it's like we're just tacking on laws to enforce laws that we already have. And if the individual is going to build a gun and not go down and license it, they're going to do that whether we make it illegal to buy the gun or not.
Yeah, but you can't make that as your argument, because if you say, well, let's not pass a common sense law because individuals will still break the law, that means you need to get rid of all of your laws. Get rid of murder, get rid of assault, get rid of aggravated assault, get rid of all of it, because there are people that will still violate the law even with laws on the books. That's the sense that you're making when you say things people are still going to violate the law.
Where we disagree is that it's a common sense law, because a common sense law would regulate something that isn't done by the average. The average citizen can't do this anyways. And so it's not common sense because it doesn't make any possible sense, since the average citizen cannot go down and build their own machine gun without licenses to buy parts to those guns.
No, sir. Look, that argument doesn't work here.
You can go down and buy build semi-automatic guns, but you have to be licensed to buy certain.
Let me tell you something, man. Let me tell you something, brother. Laws are not actually made based on what the average citizen will do. Let's start there, because the average citizen will never commit murder. But that doesn't mean we do not have murder laws on the books. So you're right, the average citizen will not make a machine gun, but that is not the prerequisite for a law on the books. It never has been, and it should not be in this context. Do you not agree?
I mean, I agree with the sentiment that you're saying, but I don't think that should apply to gun law, to just creating more and more gun laws, which in turn makes it harder for individuals that are law-abiding citizens to own guns. I mean, what we're doing is we create bills where we say, okay, well, you cannot build a gun, but then we tack on, well, you also can't own a military-grade weapon, but we don't define what military-grade weapon means.
Well, how do you define it?
I would say that a military-grade weapon is a weapon that can create mass destruction and is automatic. But that also doesn't mean that the average citizen shouldn't be able to own a semi-automatic. For example, my shotgun is a semi-automatic, which is not.
How many bullets does it shoot, brother?
It takes 3 rounds at a time.
Okay, at 3 rounds at a time.
And then I have to reload to get.
Gotcha. And what do you use that gun for?
Hunting.
Now, let me just say this, man. I'm not a hunter. But brother, if you gotta have a gun like that to shoot something, you may be in the wrong hobby. It takes that many bullets to shoot something?
A bird, yes, it does. You should come to Texas and hunt with me sometime.
Let me tell you something. Ain't no way in the hell I'm coming to Texas with you and a gun, brother. That's just not going to happen. I promise you that. That's the last thing I want to do with my life.
I live in a very safe community and we all own guns.
That's what that last Karen said too, a very safe community, right? Let me move to this question about arming for the government, right? Because the original context of the Constitution said this is a well-regulated militia, right? An armed militia for the sake of taking arms against the United States government. We recently had a statement that came from Laura Trump. And I want you to answer this question for me. Laura Trump said on Fox News a couple of days ago that individuals on the border should basically take matters into their own hands. They need to grab their guns, take matters into their own hands. Now, I want to remind you, undocumented workers aren't coming to America to kill Americans at the border. They're trying to avoid Americans. They're trying to get into the country. But for Laura Trump to say something like this on a major cable news station, that American citizens may need to grab their guns and take matters into their own hands because she may disagree with the immigration policy, don't you think that's just going too far?
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, yeah, it is going too far. I go down to the border in South Texas all the time. Frankly, those are great communities. They're very safe. There is no need for anyone to take up arms in South Texas. There's no need for anyone to take up arms in El Paso or frankly anywhere along the Texas border. I believe that's the exact same case in Arizona and California. So yeah, I think, look, that is probably, I didn't hear the comments, but it sounds like it's pandering. And that's really, frankly, that's part of what is wrong with the gun debate is we need to get back to, in your words, common sense and talk about this I'm trying to think of the word. I'm drawing a blank on the word, but using South Texas or the border in Texas to justify taking up arms, frankly, just isn't right. And frankly, it does the injustice of those communities. It does an injustice for those communities because those communities are just as safe as I am here in Abilene, Texas, or anywhere else in the state of Texas, frankly, and in most cases safer.
And Ash, that's what I need you to do, brother. The way you just articulated the reality that statements like that simply pander rather than promote a common sense solution or negotiation. You have to call out those on the right. You are in a position as a leader in the Republican Party to call out the rhetoric that's on the right. And believe me, I get it. I know it's not easy. I call out rhetoric on the right and the left. I'm okay with giving it to them both ways, right? You have to be one of those individuals because what you've said on my show, even though I disagree with most of it, I actually agree with some of it. That's a start. That is a start.
That's right.
So
absolutely.
I highly encourage you, man. Hold them accountable to the ridiculousness. Make sure that you say what you want to say to them, just like you said on this program. Don't pander yourself, brother. Ash, I appreciate you being.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It was great talk.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, before I go, I want to make sure I read some of these viewer comments. We got a little time. Let's get it. Super chats. Crumble 104 says, gotta love the doc, and I love you back. All right. Alan Smith, I'm from MD. Yes, I'm white and have walked down that very boardwalk straight effed up and never had that kind of encounter. YouTube, Videngale says, despite how we may disagree, much thanks to the guest for having the bravery to enter the bullpen. Yeah, absolutely correct. Forbesilla says, for real, I love it. I love what it's people who actually want to have a real conversation about their differences of views. Thank you. Kenny from Philly says, guns are designed to kill people, cars are not. You're correct, the design is to kill, not to injure or to drive somewhere. Twitch, Ghost Dog TV. It's easier to lose your driver's license than it is to lose your gun. Yeah, circuit overload. Keep the AR-15s and guns like that in shooting ranges. No reason to have them in your home. Yeah. Osborne says in Germany, you have to store your weapons in a safe at the shooting range if you are in a shooting club. Not sure if this is allowed at home any longer. There was a mass shooting of a son of a shooting club member who got access to his dad's safe at home some years ago. Very sad. Very sad. Listen, I want to remind you, if you watch the show on the TDR YouTube page, The Damage Report, make sure you watch us on youtube.com/indisputable TYT. Make sure you watch us there. Some things I want you to remember. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.